The sound of rain on paper screens was supposed to be calming, but as I sat across from Kenji's parents in that small tea house, every drop felt like a countdown to disaster. My name is Emma, and I'm a 34-year-old marketing consultant from Boston, Massachusetts. 6 months ago, I walked into this traditional tea house in Kyoto's Higashiyama district, looking for shelter from an unexpected storm, and ended up finding something I never knew I was searching for. Now, sitting formally on the tatami floor, with my legs going numb, wearing a dress I bought specifically to make a good impression, I realized that sometimes finding what you want means risking everything you thought you needed. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start at the beginning. I came to Japan in April 2024 on what was supposed to be a 5-day business trip. I'd been hired by a Boston-based tech startup to redesign their brand identity, and the CEO, who was obsessed with Japanese minimalism, insisted I needed to see Kyoto to understand the aesthetic he wanted. 5 days, he said. Just enough to tour some temples, take some photos, get inspired. I ended up staying for 3 months. On my second day in Kyoto, I was walking through the historic district when the sky opened up without warning. I ducked into the nearest doorway, which happened to be a tiny tea house tucked between a pottery shop and a traditional inn. The space was so small I almost missed it. No sign in English, just elegant calligraphy on aged wood. Where are you from? Drop a comment and let us know. Inside, the air smelled like green tea and old wood. There were only 4 tables, low to the ground with cushions instead of chairs. 3 were occupied by elderly Japanese women having quiet conversations. At the 4th, near the back, a young man was preparing tea with movements so precise and deliberate they looked choreographed. He looked up when I entered, water dripping from my blazer onto the immaculate floor. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, maybe, or curiosity. "Please sit," he said in accented but clear English, gesturing to the empty table. I sat, grateful and embarrassed in equal measure. "I'm sorry about the water," I said, gesturing to the puddle I'd created. "Rain is natural," he replied. "Nothing to apologize for." He brought me a small cup of tea without me ordering. "On the house," he said, "for weather refugees." The tea was bright green and slightly bitter, nothing like the tea I knew from home. I must have made a face, because he smiled for the first time. "Matcha is not for everyone," he said, "but if you drink slowly, you will taste more than bitter. You will taste spring, new leaves, morning." I tried again, sipping slowly this time. He was right. There were layers I'd missed in my first taste. "Your English is really good," I said. "I studied in California for 2 years," he explained. "UC Berkeley, international business. My father thought it would help me run this place someday." He gestured around the small tea house, though I am not sure how international business helps you make better tea. I laughed. "What brought you back?" "Obligation," he said simply. "Family duty. And maybe because I missed this." He held up the tea whisk. "In California, everything moves so fast. Here, we take time to do things correctly." "I'm Emma," I said, extending my hand. He hesitated for just a moment, then shook it. Kenji Watanabe." That awkward handshake was the beginning of everything. I came back to the tea house the next day, and the day after that. Each time, Kenji would light up slightly when I walked in, though he maintained his calm exterior. We'd talk between customers about everything and nothing. He told me about growing up in Kyoto, about learning tea ceremony from his grandmother, about his time in California, and why he ultimately couldn't stay. I told him about Boston, about my work, about how I'd spent my 20s building a career, and my 30s wondering if that was enough. On my 4th visit, he asked if I'd like to see Kyoto properly. The real Kyoto, not the tourist version. "I'd like that very much," I said. That Saturday, Kenji picked me up from my hotel on a vintage motorcycle, a Honda that had belonged to his grandfather. We spent the entire day exploring. He took me to a shrine so remote we had to hike 30 minutes through a cedar forest to reach it. We ate at a tiny ramen shop where the owner recognized Kenji and teased him in rapid Japanese that made Kenji's ears turn red. We watched the sunset from a hilltop temple, where we were the only visitors. "Thank you for today," I said, as the sky turned orange and purple over the city. "This was incredible. Thank you for wanting to see it," he replied. "Most tourists only want the famous places, but the real Kyoto is in the small moments, the hidden corners. Like your tea house," I said. "Like my tea house," he agreed. Then he turned to me, and his expression was serious. "Emma, I need to tell you something." I am very happy you came to Kyoto. These past days, talking with you, showing you my city, it has made me remember why I love this place. You see things with fresh eyes. It reminds me to see things freshly, too. I feel the same way, I said. You've made this trip special. I think you are special, he said quietly. My 5-day trip became 2 weeks, then 3. I told my client I needed more time for research. I told my roommate in Boston to cover my share of the rent. I told myself I was being spontaneous for once in my carefully planned life. The truth was, I was falling in love. Kenji and I started spending every free moment together. He'd finish at the tea house and come to my hotel, or I'd wait for him and we'd walk along the Kamo River as the sun set. We'd cook together in his tiny apartment, attempting to combine American and Japanese cuisines with mixed results. We'd watch movies with subtitles, both of us explaining cultural references the other didn't understand. He taught me basic Japanese phrases. I taught him Boston slang. We laughed at each other's mistakes. We stayed up talking until dawn. We fell asleep on his couch, tangled together, neither of us wanting to move. It felt easy, natural, right, but there was something he wasn't telling me. I could sense it in the way he'd change the subject when I asked about his family, in the way he'd tense up when his phone rang with certain callers, in the way he'd sometimes look at me with something like sadness mixed with his happiness. Finally, after 6 weeks, I confronted him. Kenji, what aren't you telling me? We were in his apartment, having just finished dinner. He set down his chopsticks and was quiet for a long moment. I live with my parents, he finally said. This apartment belongs to my cousin. I have been staying here since you arrived, but it is not mine. My real home is with my family, above the tea house. Okay, I said slowly. That's normal in Japan, right? Adult children living with parents? Yes, he said, but it is more than that. I am the oldest son, the only son. The tea house has been in my family for 70 years. My grandfather built it after World War II. My father runs it now. Someday, I will run it. I still don't see the problem, I said. The problem is expectations, he said. The problem is duty. The problem is that my family has very specific ideas about my future, and an American woman I met 6 weeks ago is not part of that future. My stomach dropped. Oh, I should have told you sooner, he said. I am sorry. I kept thinking we were just enjoying time together. I kept thinking it did not need to be serious. But now it is serious, at least for me, and I do not know what to do. It's serious for me too, I said. So what do we do? I need to tell them about you, he said. But I am afraid of what will happen. What do you think will happen? I asked. He looked at me with such sadness. I think they will ask me to choose, and I do not know if I am strong enough to choose you over them. The words hurt, but I appreciated his honesty. Then let's take this one step at a time, I said. Tell them about me. Let me meet them. We'll figure out the rest together. He reached for my hand. You are braver than I am. I'm not brave, I said. I'm just practical. And practically speaking, if we want a future together, your family needs to know I exist. He told them the next week. The conversation, he reported, did not go well. His mother, Akiko, had cried. His father, Takeshi, had been coldly furious. How long has this been going on? Why didn't you tell us sooner? What are your intentions? Does she understand anything about our culture? About our traditions? What did you tell them? I asked. I told them I am in love with you, he said simply. I told them you are kind and smart and respectful. I told them you are willing to learn. I told them I want them to meet you. And, I prompted, and my mother said I am breaking her heart. My father said I am being selfish and impulsive. They both said I am dishonoring the family. I felt sick. Kenji, maybe this is a mistake. Maybe I should just go home. No, he said fiercely. No, they are wrong. Love is not dishonor. Happiness is not selfish. They will see that when they meet you. But I wasn't so sure. The meeting was set for early June, almost 2 months after I'd first arrived in Kyoto. I had 1 week to prepare, 1 week to somehow become the kind of person Kenji's parents would approve of. I bought a conservative dark blue dress. I found a language tutor and had intensive lessons every day, learning polite Japanese phrases and proper etiquette. I read books about Japanese family structure, about traditional values, about the importance of respecting elders. I bought an expensive gift of sweets from a famous Kyoto confectioner, wrapped in the traditional way. Kenji tried to reassure me. You do not need to change who you are, he said. Just be yourself. But myself is an American who doesn't speak Japanese and doesn't understand tea ceremony, I said. That's not going to impress them. You impressed me, he said. That is what matters. I wished I could believe him. The morning of the meeting, I woke up with my stomach in knots. Kenji picked me up early, and we walked to the tea house together in silence. He held my hand tightly, and I could feel the tension in his grip. The tea house was closed to customers for the day. Inside, Kenji's parents sat waiting on the tatami mats, both dressed formally. Takeshi wore a dark kimono. Akiko wore a lighter-colored kimono with an intricate pattern. They looked elegant and intimidating. I bowed deeply, the way my tutor had taught me. Hajimemashite. Watashi wa Emma desu. Duzo yoroshiku onegai shimasu. Nice to meet you. I am Emma. Please treat me kindly. Akiko's expression didn't change. Takeshi gave the slightest nod. I presented the gift with both hands, bowing again. A small token of respect. Thank you for taking the time to meet me. Akiko accepted it with a murmur of thanks, but set it aside without opening it. Please sit, Takeshi said in English. I sat, carefully arranging myself in the formal seiza position my tutor had shown me, even though I knew my legs would be screaming within 10 minutes. Takeshi and Akiko spoke primarily to Kenji in Japanese. Occasionally, they'd address me directly in English, their questions pointed and precise. How long did I plan to stay in Japan? Did I have a visa? What did my family think about me staying here? What did I know about Japanese culture? About tea? Did I understand the significance of a family business like theirs? I answered carefully, honestly. I explained that I was learning Japanese, that I was fascinated by tea culture and wanted to understand it better, that my family was concerned but supportive, that I understood the tea house was more than a business, it was a legacy. But you do not really understand, Akiko said gently but firmly. You cannot understand, not truly. You did not grow up here. This is not your culture. You're right, I said. I didn't grow up here, but I'm trying to learn. I want to understand. I want to respect your traditions. Wanting is not the same as being able, Takeshi said. This tea house requires someone who knows our customs deeply, someone who can honor what we have built, someone who can carry it forward properly. The unspoken message was clear. Someone Japanese. I understand your concerns, I said carefully. I'm not asking to be involved in the tea house. I'm not asking to change your family's traditions. I just care about your son. I want to support him in whatever he does. Akiko spoke in Japanese to Kenji, a long speech that made his expression tighten. When she finished, he translated, his voice strained. My mother says that supporting me means understanding my responsibilities, my duty to this family. She says love alone cannot sustain a relationship when the cultural differences are so large. She says she raised me to value family above personal desire, and she hopes I will remember that. I felt tears pricking my eyes but forced them back. With respect, I said, looking at Akiko even though I knew she might not understand all my words. Your son is the most honorable person I've ever met. Everything good about him comes from how you raised him. I see that. I respect that deeply. I would never want him to abandon his responsibilities or his family. Akiko's expression softened slightly, but she shook her head. Then you understand why this cannot work, she said in careful English. Kenji has a duty, a path. You are a disruption to that path. The meeting ended shortly after, polite but cold. I bowed again, thanked them for their time, and walked out of the tea house feeling like I'd failed a test I never had a chance of passing. Kenji and I walked to a nearby park and sat on a bench in silence. They hate me, I finally said. They do not hate you, he said quietly. They fear you. They fear what you represent. Change, uncertainty, loss of control. Same result, I said. They'll never accept me. He didn't argue. He just took my hand and held it tightly. Over the next month, the pressure intensified. Akiko called Kenji multiple times a day. Takeshi gave him increasingly important responsibilities at the tea house, subtly reminding him what he stood to inherit. They introduced him to several suitable women, daughters of respected families, women who understood tea and tradition. Kenji refused every introduction, but I could see it wearing on him. He lost weight. He stopped sleeping well. The joy that had first attracted me to him began to fade, replaced by stress and guilt. Maybe we should take a break, I suggested one evening in early July. We were in his cousin's apartment, the summer heat oppressive despite the air conditioner. No, he said immediately. No breaks. We stay together. But you're miserable, I said. I can't watch you suffer like this. I am suffering because they are being unreasonable, he said. Not because of you. But I'm the cause of their unreasonableness, I said. Without me, your life would be simple again. I do not want simple, he said. I want you. He meant it. I could see it in his eyes. But I also knew that wanting something and being able to have it were two different things. In mid-July, things reached a crisis point. Takeshi's blood pressure had been climbing for weeks. His doctor warned him about stress. Akiko, whether she truly believed it or was using it as leverage, told Kenji that his relationship with me was literally killing his father. What if she is right? Kenji asked me, his voice breaking. What if the stress is too much for him? What if something happens, and it is my fault? Your father's health problems existed before me, I said. This isn't about us. It's about him needing to take better care of himself. But what if I am wrong? He said. What if choosing you means losing him? I couldn't answer that. The weight of that possibility was too heavy. We struggled through July and into August, our relationship straining under the pressure. Every phone call from his parents made Kenji tense. Every family obligation he attended without me reinforced how separate I was from his real life. Every day that passed, I could feel him pulling away, not because he loved me less, but because the burden of loving me was becoming unbearable. In late August, I made a decision. Not impulsively, but after weeks of watching the man I loved crumble under impossible pressure. I need to go back to Boston, I told him one night. His face went pale. Emma, no. Please. We can work this out. How? I asked gently. Your parents won't accept me. You can't abandon them. And I can't keep watching you tear yourself apart trying to make everyone happy. This isn't working. I love you, he said desperately. I love you too, I said. But maybe that's not enough. Maybe sometimes the circumstances are just too difficult. So you are giving up, he said. And I heard anger beneath the pain. I'm being realistic, I said. I'm choosing to let you have your life back before this destroys you completely. We argued. We cried. We held each other. And in the early morning hours, exhausted and heartbroken, Kenji finally stopped fighting me. When will you go? He asked quietly. I've already booked a flight, I said. September 5th, 2 weeks from now. He nodded, and I saw something break in his eyes. Those final 2 weeks were beautiful and terrible. We spent every moment we could together, visiting all our favorite places, making memories to carry us through what came next. We laughed and cried in equal measure. We took hundreds of photos. We said all the things we'd been too afraid to say before. On the last night, Kenji took me to the tea house after hours. He made me tea the way he had that first day, with those precise, meditative movements. We sat in the quiet space, and I finally understood what he was giving up for his family. I will find a way, he said, holding the tea bowl in both hands. I will figure out how to make this work. Go home, take care of your life, and I will find a solution. Kenji, I said gently, there is no solution. Some things just don't work out, no matter how much we want them to. I cannot accept that, he said. But we both knew the truth. The next morning, he took me to Kansai Airport. We didn't speak much on the train. What was left to say? At the departure gate, we held each other for a long time. I love you, he whispered. I will always love you. I love you too, I said through tears. Be happy. Please promise me you'll be happy. I will try, he said. I walked through security without looking back, because I knew if I did, I'd never be able to leave. The flight back to Boston was 12 hours of silent crying, watching Japan disappear beneath the clouds, feeling like I was leaving my heart behind. Boston in September felt gray and cold despite the late summer weather. I moved back into my apartment, reconnected with my clients, and tried to pretend the past 4 months hadn't happened. My roommate, Sarah, tried to be supportive, but she didn't really understand. How could she? How could I explain that I'd fallen in love with someone I could never have, in a place I could never truly belong? My work suffered at first. I'd sit at my computer, trying to design logos and marketing materials, but my mind would wander back to Kyoto, to narrow streets and paper lanterns, to the smell of matcha and old wood, to Kenji's quiet smile and careful hands. My friends tried to help. They took me to bars, introduced me to single men, encouraged me to get back on dating apps. I went through the motions, but my heart wasn't in it. How could anyone here understand what I'd had? How could anyone compare to someone who had shown me an entire different world? My mom called every Sunday. She meant well, but her advice always boiled down to the same thing. Move on. You'll meet someone else. It wasn't meant to be. She'd never understood why I'd stayed in Japan so long in the first place. Now that I was home, she wanted me to act like it had all been just an extended vacation. But it wasn't. It had been real. And real things leave real scars. Kenji and I had agreed not to stay in touch. A clean break, I'd said. It'll hurt less that way. He'd reluctantly agreed, though I could see he wanted to protest. But on October 1st, exactly 3 weeks after I'd left, I received a package. International mail from Japan. Inside was a small ceramic tea bowl, the kind used for matcha. It was simple but beautiful, with a subtle glaze that caught the light. There was a note in Kenji's careful handwriting. Emma, this bowl was made by my grandmother before she passed. She made it for me when I was learning tea ceremony as a child. I want you to have it. When you use it, I hope you will remember that what we had was real, that it mattered, that you mattered to me. Always, Kenji. I sat on my apartment floor and cried, holding that bowl like it was the most precious thing in the world. October bled into November. I threw myself into work, taking on more projects than I could comfortably handle. I started running every morning, pushing myself until my legs ached and my lungs burned. I needed the physical pain to distract from the emotional pain. It didn't really work, but I kept trying. I went on a few dates. There was Michael, a software developer who loved hiking. There was James, a teacher who made me laugh. There was David, an architect who shared my love of design. They were all perfectly nice. I felt absolutely nothing. In late November, I broke down and sent Kenji a message. Just a simple text. Thank you for the tea bowl. It's beautiful. I hope you're doing well. He responded within an hour, which meant it was early morning in Kyoto. I am glad you received it. I am okay. Working a lot. My parents are still pushing me to meet women. I am resisting. How are you? I'm surviving. I wrote back. Working a lot too. Dating a little. Also feeling nothing. I understand that feeling. He wrote. I go through the motions, but I am not really present. I think about you every day. We started texting again after that, carefully at first, keeping things light. Updates about work, about weather, about mutual interests. Nothing too deep, nothing that would hurt too much. But slowly the conversations deepened. We couldn't help it. We knew each other too well to stay on the surface. He told me his parents had increased the pressure. They'd introduced him to 8 different women since I'd left. He'd gone on dates with 4 of them, trying to force himself to feel something. It never worked. My mother says I am being stubborn and childish, he wrote. My father says I am putting my own desires above family duty. Maybe they are right. Maybe I am selfish. You're not selfish, I wrote. You're human. You can't force feelings that aren't there. In Japan, sometimes you must, he replied. Sometimes duty comes before feelings. I told him about my dating attempts too, about how I kept comparing everyone to him, about how unfair that was to these perfectly good men who had done nothing wrong except not be him. I think we broke each other. I wrote one night after too much wine. I think we loved each other so completely that now no one else can measure up. Maybe, he wrote back. Or maybe we just loved each other correctly, and everything else feels wrong because it is wrong. The holidays were brutal. I spent Thanksgiving with my family in Maine, fielding questions about my love life and career plans. Everyone tiptoed around my time in Japan, as if it was a shameful secret instead of the most important experience of my life. Christmas was worse. I was surrounded by couples, by happiness, by people who got to be with the ones they loved. I smiled and made conversation and pretended to be fine, and the moment I got home, I texted Kenji even though it was the middle of the night for him. I miss you. I know I shouldn't say it, but I do. I miss you every single day. He responded immediately, which meant he'd been awake. I miss you too. Every moment. I have not stopped missing you since you left. I do not think I will ever stop. We video called that night, both of us emotional and raw. Seeing his face on my screen hurt and healed at the same time. This is torture, I said. Loving you from 8,000 miles away. Not being able to touch you or hold you or be with you. I know, he said. But what choice do we have? The situation has not changed. My family still will not accept you. I still cannot leave them. So we just suffer separately? I asked. Forever? He looked at me with such sadness. I do not know. I do not have answers anymore. We talked for 3 hours that night, and by the end we'd made a decision. A painful one, but necessary. We needed to really try to move on. Not just go through the motions, but actually invest in the possibility of other relationships. We owed ourselves that chance at happiness, even if it wasn't with each other. I will try, he promised. I will really try this time. Me too, I said. We said goodbye, and I cried myself to sleep. January brought a new year and a determination to actually move forward. I met someone named Ryan through a friend at a New Year's party. He was a financial analyst, stable and kind. We started dating seriously. He took me to nice restaurants, introduced me to his friends, talked about future plans. On paper, he was everything I should want, but my heart wasn't in it. I tried. I really did. But every time he touched me, I thought of Kenji's hands. Every time he spoke, I compared his voice to Kenji's quiet tone. It was exhausting and unfair, and I knew I needed to stop. Kenji, meanwhile, had started seeing someone his parents approved of. Her name was Yuki, and she was everything I wasn't. Japanese, from a good family, knowledgeable about tea ceremony, perfectly suited to be the wife of a tea house owner. He told me about her in one of our increasingly infrequent texts. I am trying, Emma. I am really trying with her. My parents are happy. Maybe that is enough. Is it? I asked. Are you happy? There was a long pause before he responded. I do not know what happy feels like anymore without you.
In March, almost exactly a year after I'd first walked into that tea house, I did something impulsive. Ryan had just told me he was falling in love with me, and I'd frozen, unable to say it back. I'd gone home, looked at the tea bowl Kenji had given me, and made a decision. I bought a plane ticket to Kyoto. I didn't tell Kenji. I didn't tell anyone except Sarah, who thought I was insane but helped me pack anyway.
I took a leave of absence from my biggest client, sublet my room, and boarded a flight with no clear plan beyond needing to know if what we'd had was really over. The flight felt endless. 13 hours of anxiety and second-guessing. What was I doing? What if Kenji had really moved on? What if seeing me caused more problems with his family? What if I was making everything worse? But I had to know. I had to see him one more time, face to face, and confirm that it was truly over. Or fight for it if it wasn't. I landed at Kansai Airport on a Tuesday morning, exhausted and terrified. I took the train to Kyoto, watching familiar landscapes pass by the window, feeling like I was coming home and walking into disaster simultaneously. I went straight to the tea house. It was mid-morning, and there were a few customers inside. Through the window, I could see Kenji preparing tea, his movements as precise and beautiful as I remembered. My heart clenched so hard I almost couldn't breathe. I walked in, the door chime announcing my arrival. Kenji looked up, and the tea whisk fell from his hands. "Emma," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "What are you doing here?" "I came to see you," I said. "I needed to see you." He looked at the customers, then back at me, clearly torn. "Wait," he said. "Please, give me 10 minutes." I waited outside, pacing the narrow street, my heart pounding. When he finally came out, he looked at me like he couldn't quite believe I was real. "Why are you here?" he asked again. "Because I couldn't move on," I said. "I tried. I really tried. But I can't stop loving you, and I needed to know if you felt the same way. If there was any possibility, any chance at all, that we could make this work." He closed his eyes briefly. "Emma, nothing has changed. My family still expects me to marry Yuki. I still have obligations. Coming here, it only makes everything harder." "I know," I said, "but I had to try. I had to know if you felt anything for her, if you'd actually moved on." He looked at me, and his eyes were full of pain. "I feel nothing for her. She is kind and appropriate and everything my parents want. And when I am with her, all I think about is you." "Then why are we doing this?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why are we torturing ourselves?" "Because I do not know how to choose," he said. "Between you and my family, between my happiness and my duty. I have been trying to choose for a year and I cannot." "Then stop trying to choose," I said. "Stop thinking of it as either or. Maybe there's a way to have both." "There is not," he said firmly. "I have looked for that way. It does not exist." We stood there on that narrow Kyoto street, tourists and locals passing by, and I realized he was right. Nothing had changed. My flying here on impulse didn't solve anything. It just made us face the same impossible situation we'd been running from. "I should go," I said quietly. "This was a mistake. I'm sorry." "Wait," he said, catching my arm. "Where are you staying?" "I haven't checked in anywhere yet," I admitted. "I came straight here." He hesitated, clearly conflicted. Then he made a decision. "Come with me. We need to talk properly." He closed the tea house early, leaving a note for his parents. We went to his cousin's apartment, the same place where we'd spent so many evenings the year before. Nothing had changed there either. Same small kitchen, same worn couch, same memories soaked into every surface. We sat on the couch, not touching, both of us afraid of what might happen if we got too close. Tell me about the past year, he said. Really tell me. Not just the messages and video calls. Tell me the truth. So I did. I told him about the dating, about Ryan, about trying to force myself to feel something for someone else, about the mornings I'd wake up and forget for just a moment that I wasn't in Kyoto anymore, and the crushing disappointment when reality hit, about using his grandmother's tea bowl every morning like a ritual, like a prayer for something I knew I couldn't have. When I finished, his eyes were wet. Now you, I said, tell me the truth. He told me about Yuki, about how patient and kind she was, about how much his parents loved her, about how empty he felt every time they went on a date, about how he'd been working 16-hour days at the tea house because work was the only thing that distracted him from missing me, about how he'd kept the hotel receipt from my stay in Kyoto in his wallet, a tiny piece of paper connecting him to those 4 months. We are both miserable, I said. We're both in relationships that don't work. We're both pretending to be okay when we're falling apart. This has to stop. I know, he said, but I still do not know how. I looked at him, really looked at him. He'd lost weight. There were dark circles under his eyes. The joy that had first drawn me to him was completely gone, replaced by exhaustion and resignation. What if you just chose? I said. What if you stopped trying to make everyone happy and just chose what you wanted? Would your parents really disown you? My mother might, he said quietly. She is very traditional, very focused on family honor and expectations. My father, I am less sure. He is more pragmatic. But disappointing them both, it feels like betraying everything they sacrificed to raise me. But aren't they betraying you by forcing you into a life that makes you miserable? I asked. Isn't that a betrayal too? In my culture, it is different, he said. Parents sacrifice everything for their children. Children owe them respect and obedience in return. That is the contract. That is how it works. Even if that obedience destroys you? I asked. He didn't answer, which was answer enough. We talked for hours that day, going in circles, reaching no conclusions. By evening, we were both emotionally exhausted. I should find a hotel, I said. Stay here, he said. My cousin is traveling for work. The apartment is empty. You can stay as long as you need. That's probably not a good idea, I said. I know, he agreed, but I do not care anymore. I have been good for a year. I have tried to do the right thing. For one night, I just want you here. So I stayed. We didn't sleep together. We just lay on the couch, holding each other, not speaking. Being close was enough, feeling his heartbeat, breathing in sync, remembering what it felt like to not be alone. It was the most peace I'd felt in 12 months. In the morning, reality crashed back in. Kenji had missed dinner with his family the night before. His phone was full of angry messages from his mother. He needed to go home, face them, explain. What will you tell them? I asked. I do not know, he said. Maybe the truth. Maybe it is time. I'll come with you, I said. No, he said firmly. This is something I need to do alone. But wait for me, please. Stay here and wait. Okay, I said. He left, and I spent the day in that apartment, anxious and terrified. I cleaned to distract myself. I made food I couldn't eat. I stared at my phone, waiting for updates that didn't come. Kenji finally returned at 7 in the evening, looking shattered. I told them, he said. I told them Emma is here. I told them I am ending things with Yuki. I told them I cannot keep living this way. What did they say? I asked, dreading the answer. My mother screamed at me, he said. She called me selfish and ungrateful. She said I am destroying the family name. She said if I continue this path, I am no longer her son. And your father? I asked. Kenji's voice broke. My father said nothing. He just walked out of the room. That somehow feels worse. I went to him, held him while he finally let himself fall apart. I'm so sorry, I whispered. I shouldn't have come here. I've made everything worse. No, he said fiercely. You reminded me that I am not just a son or a tea house owner or a family obligation. I am also a person who deserves to be happy. I forgot that. What happens now? I asked. Now I make a choice, he said. The choice I should have made a year ago. I choose you, Emma. I choose us, whatever the consequences. Over the next week, things got very difficult. Kenji's mother refused to speak to him. His father communicated only through terse texts about tea house business. The family pressure was immense, but for the first time, Kenji didn't buckle under it. I am not abandoning them, he explained to me one night. I am still running the tea house. I am still honoring my responsibilities. I am just also living my own life. They will have to accept that. But what if they don't? I asked. What if they never accept me? Then that is their loss, he said. I have wasted enough time trying to earn approval that comes with conditions I cannot meet. I am done. He started making plans. He found us a small apartment to rent, separate from his family's home. He created boundaries at work, limiting when his parents could contact him. He officially ended his relationship with Yuki, apologizing for wasting her time when his heart belonged elsewhere. It wasn't easy. There were hard days. Days when Kenji would come home exhausted from battling his mother's guilt trips, or his father's silent disappointment. Days when I questioned whether my being here was worth the pain I was causing everyone. But there were also good days. Days when we'd explore Kyoto together like we had that first time. Days when Kenji would smile at me over morning tea, and I'd see glimpses of the joy returning to his eyes. Days when we'd lie tangled together in our small apartment, and everything felt right despite the surrounding chaos. In June, 3 months after I'd impulsively flown to Kyoto, Kenji and I got married at the city ward office. It was just paperwork, practical and unromantic, but it solved my visa issues and made our commitment official. We didn't invite anyone. We just went with 2 witnesses we hired for the ceremony, signed papers, and became legally bound. That evening, Kenji told his parents, the reaction was about what we expected. His mother cried. His father said it was a mistake we'd come to regret. Neither of them congratulated us. I felt horrible, but Kenji was resolute. They will adjust, he said, or they will not. But we are married now. That is not changing. But they didn't adjust. Not for months. Kenji continued working at the tea house, but his relationship with his parents was strained and formal. They spoke only about business, never about us, never about our lives together. It was like I existed in a parallel universe they refused to acknowledge. I started studying Japanese intensively, desperate to integrate somehow. I hired a tutor and studied for hours every day. I learned not just the language, but the cultural nuances, the proper etiquette, the unspoken rules. If I couldn't win his parents' approval on my own terms, maybe I could at least meet them halfway. I also started volunteering at a local international center, helping other foreigners navigate life in Japan. It gave me purpose beyond just being Kenji's wife. It helped me build my own community, my own identity in this country that would never fully accept me as one of its own. Months passed. Summer became autumn. Autumn became winter. Kenji and I built our life together in our small apartment, separate from his family but still connected to them through the tea house. It was a strange, suspended existence, happy in our private world, but shadowed by the rejection from the people who mattered most to Kenji. Then, in December, almost 9 months after our marriage, something shifted. Takeshi had a health scare, nothing life-threatening, but serious enough to frighten everyone. He was hospitalized for observation, and suddenly the family dynamics changed. Akiko called Kenji, her voice different than it had been in months. "Your father wants to see you," she said. "Both of you." We went to the hospital unsure what to expect. Takeshi looked older than I remembered, smaller in the hospital bed. Akiko sat beside him, her elegant composure cracked by worry. Takeshi spoke in Japanese. Slowly, Kenji translated quietly for me. "My father says being in the hospital makes you think about what matters. He says he has been very stubborn, very focused on tradition and expectations. He says maybe he has been wrong." I bowed deeply, not trusting myself to speak. "He says he can see that you make Kenji happy." Kenji continued translating. "He says he has not seen Kenji this content since he was a child. He says maybe happiness is also a kind of duty, the duty to live a good life." Tears were streaming down my face now. "Thank you," I managed to say in Japanese. "Thank you for saying that." Akiko spoke then, her voice tight with emotion. Kenji translated again. "My mother says she has been afraid of change, afraid of losing her son, afraid of what people would think. She says fear made her cruel. She is sorry for that." "You were not cruel," I said, "even though she had been. You were protecting your family. I understand that." Akiko looked at me directly for the first time in months. In careful English, she said, "You have been patient. You have tried to learn our ways. Maybe it is time we try to learn yours too." It wasn't a full acceptance. It wasn't a warm welcome into the family, but it was a beginning. Over the following months, things slowly improved. Akiko started inviting us to family dinners. Not often, and still formal, but it was contact, communication. She even started teaching me some tea ceremony basics, her corrections sharp, but no longer cruel. Takeshi recovered and returned to semi-retirement, letting Kenji take on more responsibility at the tea house. He never became warm with me, but he was respectful. He acknowledged my presence. He occasionally asked about my work at the International Center. It was progress. Slow, painful progress, but progress nonetheless. Now, almost 2 years after I impulsively flew back to Kyoto, I can say I have a life here. Not the life I imagined when I first fell in love in that tiny tea house, but a real one nonetheless. I speak Japanese fluently now, though my accent still marks me as foreign. I've built a successful consulting business helping international brands understand and market to Japanese consumers. I have friends, both expat and Japanese. I understand the culture in ways I never could have from the outside. Kenji and I are talking about having children. The thought terrifies me. Raising biracial children in Japan, dealing with the questions of identity and belonging they'll face. But it also excites me. The idea of blending our worlds, creating something new from our different backgrounds. Akiko, when we told her, said something that surprised me. In careful English, she said, "Mixed children are a bridge. Between cultures, between families. Maybe that is what this family needs. A bridge. It's not perfect. There are still hard days. Days when I feel like an outsider. Days when cultural misunderstandings create friction. Days when I miss Boston and my family and the ease of living in my own culture. But there are more good days than bad now. Days when I wake up next to Kenji and feel grateful I fought for this. Days when Akiko shows me a new tea technique and I see pride in her eyes. Days when I walk through Kyoto and feel like I belong here, at least a little bit. Was it worth it? The pain, the struggle, the uncertainty, the years of fighting for something that seemed impossible? Yes, absolutely yes. Because love isn't about easy, it's about worth it. And Kenji has always been worth it. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had to fight for love across cultural boundaries? Have you ever had to win over a reluctant family? Share your experiences below. And if my journey touched your heart, please like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe to the channel for more real stories about love that crosses borders. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss a new story. Thank you for listening to my story.